Okay, are we ready to rock? Welcome, Art Man. I'm gonna take you on a wild ride. I've been making comics for about 20 years or so. Rock, yeah, rock and roll time. I've been making comics for about 20 years or so. Sorry, my name's Andy. I'm from Belfast, Northern Ireland, hence a Liam Neeson-esque accent. Um, if you could leave questions to the end, and I'm going to barrel through this um, and see where we get on. A few caveats first. It's kind of written from a writer's perspective, um, and it's got pretty much everything that I've learned in 20 years of making comics in the underground. If the resistance sales, and it's got all that in there. So my qualifications, why I am a big shot. Right at the top, we have Absence, a comic about epilepsy, which crossed to about 10,000 Northern Irish households, which is about 1 in 5 of the population here. And we got 10,000 digital views as well, which is pretty good. I've written for Forbidden Planet. Bug Powder there was a leading independent comics review site. I've also written for Bleeding Cool and whatever Silver Bullet Comics is now. I've forgotten. The small picture in the middle is Drawing My Grandmother, which I created a memoir about her life for 24 Hour Comics Day. And a few critical commentators call that the best comic of 2008, which is pretty kind of awesome, isn't it? And in the middle, we have To End All Wars, which has a foreword by 2008 creator Pat Mills. It was nominated for 2 Eisner Awards, Best Graphic Novel, Best Anthology. I'm in there with about 120 other creators, so I have 1/60th of an Eisner nomination I've worked out. And Northern Visions, I produced a television documentary for my local station about 40 years of cartooning in Belfast. And that was 10 years ago, and it's still shown in circulation today. So that is why I am a big shot. Right. So I'm not going to go into a great bit of detail about how to write and draw and how to do all that. The idea is just do it. Helpful guidelines: Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, Comics and Sequential Art by Will Eisner. They're kind of 2 mandatory textbooks that you really, really should go through. Eisner's is the least well known, but it is just phenomenal what he does with page layouts and stuff. Comic scripts. Comics are kind of unique in terms of script writing in that you can pretty much do whatever, lay them out whatever way you like, as long as you're respecting the static photography aspect. I've just remembered I was going to record this talk. How rock and roll is that I'm not even taking this to the studio? There we go. Studio cut. Live warm-up show. So, the main thing to respect is that comics are static images. They're not animation. You are essentially putting down a series of photographs or still images, and the reader, in McCloud's word, drops the axe. The reader interprets what goes on between the panels. And kind of reflecting this is a sort of minimalist style that 2000 AD creators like Alan Wagner and John Grant, Alan Grant and John Wagner put together, in that they kind of delivered their scripts in sort of what we call telegram style. The man picked up the book. Is a very Dan Brown kind of thing to say, but that's just how easy it can be, how simple, and you want to make it simple. And you can pay attention to things like insets and thought balloons, and some writers like Alan Moore will list a page length description to an illustrator. It doesn't really matter. So here's how I prefer to think of comics: as comics, teamwork. You explain what you need as concisely as you need, and you get in the mix wherever you can. And I think this is pretty important for writers. The writer's job is easy. It's the illustrator that makes us look magnificent. They do all the hard work. They carry those stones and rocks to the top of the mountain, and we just stand up there waving first in the credits. So I think the writer needs to address this wherever possible. We need to carry some weight. We need to be the artist's advocate and their salesperson, and with those sort of things in mind, we also need to be very careful when we're asking an artist to do stuff for free. Artists don't work for free. Don't ask anyone specifically unless you know them quite well. It helps to pay your artist. Okay, so you can't afford industry rates. You might not afford $50 a page. It all mounts up. Can you give them anything? Can you give them beer money? Can you give them $10 a page? The old Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul thing. Stick $1 in my pocket. Give them something. So when I worked with Stephen Downey on Absence, a comic about epilepsy, Stephen already had worked for Torchwood, the comic Torchwood, comic version of that. He had 2 graphic novels out with Marcosia. And all I could really offer him, I mean, Torchwood, he must be getting $100 a page, maybe. All I could give him was $35. But he took the job because of the nature of the project. It was about health, awareness, social entrepreneurship, social cohesion. Stephen and I were friends, good friends. He knew he could trust me. And he knew that 10,000 print copies were going to go round, and we were putting them out in packets of 10. So really, community centres, libraries, police stations, hospitals. So he knew there was going to be distribution. He knew it was a safe job and a sensible career step. So this is a radical example, but it makes the point. Stephen was so sure that once he was on board, he volunteered to build a website. So 3 rules then: be fast, be pleasant to work with, and produce something amazing. And as long as you do 2 of those things, the adage is that you're in with a good chance. Am I going too fast for people? It's just Northern Irish accent. We all talk like Barry Allen and Jay Garrick and Wally West. Thanks, Anne Sapphire. So this one is particularly pointed at writers. Learn how to draw. You don't have to be good. Just learn how to draw. Some of you don't want to hear this. In fact, it's not even mandatory advice. It's advice from my own style and my own choice. I suspect a lot of comics writers don't draw. Wagner and Grant probably don't. Grant Morrison has notebooks full of drawings. I feel that if a writer really wants to understand what an artist is going through, they have to learn to draw for better visualization, better understanding of space on the page. And, I think it does something for the respect between the creators. So there's a few ways. Your thumbnails with stick figures that show you how the page is laid out, lets you verify that each panel you can get in everything that you want, or somebody better than you can. You can use it to make sure you're not slipping into that sort of rolling film kind of animation style of storytelling that you can't really do much. You've got one fixed image for the most part with maybe a little bit of blur. It seems to be good practice not to share these sort of thumbnails with the illustrator unless they really ask for it. But certainly there's no harm in letting them know they exist. When Stephen created Absence, he worked from both script and my original 24-hour comic version of Absence. And it'll also function as a rough draft of an idea of what you need to get out. The pages on the screen are they're from Gran. They're the very acclaimed one, and they're very scrappy. It was 24 hours, but they still convey what I needed to show on the page in that way. So you can sketch out logos and uniforms. A lot of creators are quite into that sort of stuff. And those sort of thumbnail illustrations, if they're presentable, they can be taken on board by the illustrator. And I think what I have found in my own career hobby, well, I took it seriously, so it was a career, was that I got more and more attached to the drawing side of things. I started drawing so I could learn. I could have somebody to convey my writing, and then I got pulled into it. So do keep in mind what you want. If you want just to be a writer, don't go too far down the myriad tunnel system. Might be that you fall in love with drawing. And of course, illustrators will want to learn how to write as well. And this is good practice for them too. And like I said, illustrators are the key storytellers in comics. So do ask yourself at intervals: Are you learning how to draw so that someone can realize your scripts, or is your heart where your heart is? And maybe you should take a step back and just sort of keep up with that self-reflection. There are upshots. Great comics work like this is sort of lo-fi standard can still be a good calling card, and there are great examples of popular minimalist cartoons. The XKCD, Ralph Kidson is probably the greatest unsung star in comics. When I give you this presentation at the end, take his name, Ralph Kidson, go into a Google search. I've written about him a few times. A wonderfully funny man. His comics are brilliant because he's a very funny man. He understands space and he understands stick figures and how to use them. So, right. And I suppose, if there's anybody here who's not interested in comics, a lot of this stuff works well for books as well, for short stories, for making film. It's transportable knowledge in this way. So, as I said, I'm going through what has worked for me in my steps towards, I've not bragging, but I must have self-published about 50 comics by now, and I've had 2 of them have been quite big hits, and a short story published by somebody else. So I'm just going to tell you what worked for me, and that was making a name for yourself, and in my case, reviewing. Lesser known works that I adore, as well as more profile commercial books. The time that I was reviewing for Silver Bullet Comics and for Bug Powder, we would get sent books for free to review on it. I've got a lovely Scroobius Pip graphic novel knocking about somewhere. Connect people to other people. You two work well together. I think you should go and get a room. Connect people to resources. So, SaskCon is on right now. Bring them over. Andy's talk is the best one ever. Come and see. Here's a small press fair, and I'll be coming on to conventions in a wee bit. And so, it's really important that when you find somebody that you gel with, that you keep sustaining that relationship for as long as possible. You have to complement each other wonderfully. Think about the writers, especially think about the middle management analogy here and what you can offer them. Don't force an artist if the pitch isn't going anywhere with them. Adapt with something that they might love and make happen. If that doesn't work, bring a new pitch to them and repeat as needed. And remember those sort of 2 or 3 rules. Be good. Be polite. Was it? Bring your work in on time. Yeah, that's embarrassing. It'll be in the slides. We can travel back in time. And if the Perrys grow work from collaboration, you've something more likely to see bigger audiences. And if you're not a douche, you can try for an opinion column. And in fact, we all know you can just blog this, but there's not really much money in it today unless you're a big name. But, for example, in the UK, Down the Tubes is a wonderful website run by an ex-Marvel UK editor. And it does wonderful comics journalism. So weigh up things like, how your big currency is money. Yeah, money's bloody important. But time is a big one. So weigh up things like distribution versus payment. That's an important one. Right. Now. Aha. There's Saul. He's back again. So I like to have a contract in place. A contract can be just a one-page doc. The web has lots of good templates for it. It's basically just stipulating what happens if you win. And it's a Kevlar vest. It only offers a little protection. I've dealt with creators, a few who are now, well, one in particular who's now quite a big name, and he's broken a contract with me, and I've been powerless to act against him. But at the very least, the contract ensures my side of the story. I mentioned beer money already, so I'm going to skip that. We can see they put $1 in my pocket there. And indeed, it's if you're working for free or chump change, it's a good idea to jump around publishers if there's no money coming down the line from them. And that increases your distribution range. Crowdfunding, obviously the big one. And this can help in so many ways. I'll just go over them anyway. You've got your distribution costs first, then your print costs, then the artist, then you. And it's perfectly right to allow yourself a share of funding for writing and management tasks, but it's important as well to be transparent with your collaborators and your audience. Writing is my day job. I rely on Patreon mostly for my monthly wage. It's not a lot, because I've maybe got about 22 patrons, and some pay me £1 a month. Some pay me one guy pays me £30 a month. So that's fantastic, and it really is a absolute lifeline to me. And my subscribers get things like full scripts, concept notes, thumbnails, whatever I can give to them first and get away with it. I absolutely try and look after my patrons as best as possible. And I've also got people like Susanna Raymond, my friend who was in here earlier, and who just supports me by liking stuff on social media, sharing stuff all the time. And those sort of patrons are really important to have. Writing isn't comics, it's writing, and good writers are artists too. So recognize the value of your art. It's harder to sell writing when you're, beyond the initial publication. So start thinking about selling adaptations. Can you sell a piece of writing as a poem as well as a comic? What avenues are there for cross-migration between media forms? I don't know who has heard of the Transformers series More Than Meets the Eye by James Roberts and others. A wonderful, wonderful comic that is so much better than a comic about Transformers has any right to be. Oh my God, where to start? But one of the things that James does, because James does incredibly complex scripts, like Alan Moore would be known for, he has taken to selling his scripts at conventions, and he produces like a sort of a writer's commentary. So he will lay them out with the track changes, and he will put like extra commentaries in the sidebars, like a special features kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just pop by chat. Xyphon, yeah, there is not much money in comics. You don't do it as money. You don't do it for money. You do it for love, and I'm going to come on to that a bit more. But yeah, absolutely, merchandising is worth mentioning. So the presentation where I talk about how I became a household name for 5 minutes. This is Brona Lawson, and she is I met her as a creative business mentor, and Brona had done cross community work along the Peace Line, and when I went to see her, I got the sessions with her as part of a local business enterprise course. So it was very much like sitting down with a therapist, or what I imagine that to be. Early on in the process, Brona told me something I've always remembered. As creatives, we have 20,000 great ideas spinning in our head at all times, flashing lots of different colors, like a roulette wheel going round and round. And what we need to do is stop that wheel spinning. We need to stop that wheel spinning at the best idea, and then we need to focus on that idea. And when Brona and I were talking through, we talked about Absence, which I had created as a 24-hour comic, and we figured out that we could take it from a small publication with 50 readers into a mainstream one with 10,000. To fund it, we examined the type of work it was. Where does a comic's objective intersect with the objections of the funding bodies? In this case, we were looking at a social fund called the Unlimited Millennium Award, who dole out money for like community projects and social entrepreneurship. And we kept talking, and thankfully Brona had experience in these sort of applications to funding bodies. So we spent weeks drawing up a list of every library and police station, college, surgery and hospital in Northern Ireland. How much would it cost us if our pitch was successful? So that was something we needed to work out, how much we were pitching for. It had to pay for postage and packaging, for distribution printers. It had to pay for Stephen to draw it. We were aiming for non-profit charities, so no one could get paid beyond the cost. And actually, Stephen's art services were listed as rendering, and we had to pay a website to host it. So Brona taught me all about this application process and how to address every criteria for funding the text. Then she rewrote my draft of the application. I rewrote hers until we'd something ironclad that we could send them. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to do this. My favorite story about somebody breaking into comics is from Doctor Who writer Tony Lee, and the story Tony tells was that he's from Britain, and he called Marvel, and he said he was a big British comics writer, which he wasn't, and he was only in New York for the day. He had a meeting with DC Comics at 3:00, but could he get one with Marvel at 2:00? And then once he got the meet, he told DC he'd like a 3 p.m. meet with them. He'd one with Marvel at 4 p.m. Tony's not proud of this, but it worked. All those boxes you see in that photo, by the way, that's my living room. Those are all boxes of comics, those 10,000 comics, which I slipped into 1,000 packets. Everything stamped and addressed. I borrowed a supermarket trolley. Okay, I stole a supermarket trolley so that I could cart them to the post office. Incredibly tedious. Pre-Kindle comics. 2010, 2011. This was how self-publishers worked. And my collaboration with Brona taught me sort of valuable things. Got a lot of insight. Like, for example, Brona insisted I hold a launch party for the book. It was something I really wasn't fussed on doing. It worked. It got great press coverage. It got great distribution, reviews everywhere. So I really think it's time I advised you on approaching someone that you admire and you trust for a Skype consultation or something else. Somebody you know preferably, and somebody you know is really good. I'd wager a few meetings are better than one. Many creatives are grateful for the opportunity to pay the bills and to help somebody along their journey. I think it's just some sort of weird trait that we creatives have. We are happy for other people to do well, if they're our mates anyway. Right. What else? Media and the message. So, is this the right? Oh yeah. So this is the opening credits of my documentary for Northern Visions Television. It's quite straightforward magic that you can replicate because there's a lot of local community television stations. You guys have cable in America, which I don't really understand, but what I do get is that you can just make programs for free, or at least that's the way it used to be. And hell, we're in the internet age. We have YouTube, way, and Vimeo. So Northern Visions were offering a course. They were offering to, as part of social enterprise, teach people, train them to make films and produce films so that they would build content for their channel, some non-profit channel, going out locally on, I don't know what's called, analog, internet. And I didn't realize at the time that it was circulated on repeats. And 9 months later, I was in Galway, the other end of Ireland, doing a Comic Con. And it just so happened that The Invisible Artist was screening at the time. So me and the organisers there were able to build that into the programme because they had a screening room. And with Comic Cons, just talk to them. I came to SaskCon as a audience member last year, and I was just so blown away by the experience. I knew I had to barge my way in here, politely, of course, politely. So do that, and if you've got stuff, don't be modest. Con organisers have to know what you have to give you the respect you deserve, give you the visibility you deserve, if they're good con runners. So yeah, wear that stuff, show it off, dance with it. NVTV, Northern Visions, also run a writer's show, so I got involved in that. A small bookshop charity invited me to do a screen reading for their Facebook stream. It was all about getting prisoners back to working in a bookstore. So that was great. And there's a Facebook page called I'll Guest for That Podcast, where you can stick your name and details forward for podcasters who are looking for guests. So that was all great. Rock and roll, baby. Become a household name for 5 minutes. Work for free, or work for beer nuts. And the story of how I landed my 1/30th of an Eisner nomination was sheer luck. I mentioned earlier John Freeman down the tubes, a wonderful British comics journalism site, and he happened to run a forum out of that site at the time, and there was a call out. Sadly, the forum's no longer there, but he has a Facebook page which you can find a link to in this presentation. And so there's a call out. I answered it. The next thing I know, it starts becoming quite organised, because it was this is a book about World War One. It was coming up to the 100th anniversary. And everything just kind of fell into place, and I attracted the attention of Pat Mills, the man who created 2000 AD. Got a very nice mention from him in the foreword. I'm not entirely, as I've stepped away from comics the last few years, I'm not entirely sure what is kind of cutting edge now in terms of how to meet creators and publishers. I know digital webbing has a bit of pull. Not much for writers, more so for illustrators, but writers can advertise on there, and as you can see, paid jobs. If anybody has any recommendations, actually, feel free to stick them in the comments. I did when I noticed there was a bit scant on this, I ran through Facebook a search and turned up loads of stuff, and a lot of them are locally based. So you can do wonderful things locally if you've got the right momentum, if you've got the right mix of people. And if you look to write for free, there's no shortage of publications and collaborators. As long as you're respectful, fanzines are a good spot still. They're becoming more glossier and with a ready-made audience to them. Still, choose your job carefully. If you're giving quality, it must get an audience. Check their distribution details. You saw on the last slide, distribution is 33% of the work. Possibly even more, but definitely more, actually, because without it, it's just you in your bedroom with a comic or a book. Large circulation is better than niche, especially if it's free rather than cost. And actually, a quick segue, Bob Byrne is a Dublin cartoonist who got known through 2000 AD about 10 years ago. And what Bob used to do, he would create very silly little humour strips, a bit rude, not too rude, a bit weird and surreal. And he'd make them into like a 16-page little pocket booklet. But actually, it was a 32 or 28 page. Excuse me. Oh, rock and roll. Sorry, Bob Byrne. Yeah, so he had 16 pages of comics. And then what he did was he went around to small businesses in his city. Maybe ones he had a good relationship with as a customer, maybe ones that had some street cred or wanted to, and he solicited advertisements from them. So he was able to get his comic book paid for. It would have been maybe 20 to 30% adverts, but the whole comic book was printed, distributed, and he got some money for working on it, paid by these adverts, and it just went out for free. And you might walk into a club or a restaurant and you'd see stacks of those sitting there. You just take one, and so that there's really achievable ways of doing this. I used to, when I was a kid, many years ago, I had about 4 paper rounds. Yeah, frightening. But there's kids that still accept beer money for delivering your comics everywhere. General submissions advice. Sorry, Phoebe Alexander, 123 Go Comics. They're a small press that I'm working with. She's publishing my forthcoming strip, Shootout at the Sugar Skull. It's set in the university she's built. She's paying George Louis Gaboto to draw 15 or 16 pages. Phoebe's a joy to work with, very encouraging, good feedback, a lot of creative freedom, and that makes all the difference when she's not paying me. I don't have much time, but I would love to work with her again because she has people skills. And when you find somebody like that, and when you operate like that, it makes all the difference, and you will attract people who will work, at non-professional rates and do a professional job. Right, so is an interesting site. Jason Thibault's definitive list of comic publisher submission guidelines. And it's once called a submission guidelines for every comics publisher in the universe, which sounds very cool, but it's not true. It can't be true. There are tens of thousands of small presses and indie presses, possibly just in the country where you live in, if you're in a very, very, very big country. So there's professional literary journals, which publish only a few pages of comics per issue. And you can find these in the Writers and Artists Yearbook or on Duotrope and the like. And the more you read, the more you know. So I'll just check into the chat. I'm Sapphire. I'm going to take that at the end, if you don't mind. Submission advice, generally, as with writing prose, poetry, and for screen, draft, redraft, and redraft. Keep your opening letter simple. If you're taken to an external publisher, never pitch in the body of an email. Never paste stuff in. Include as attachments. Make use of your pitch docs with graphics. Some editors only want one page, so you do what you can. Keep a track of where you submit to. There's great templates online for doing this for idiots. No, you're not idiots. You're savants who can't use spreadsheets and databases. I've got a link there from Neon Books, which is a good one. Money. Fuck. Sorry. Money isn't everything. Comics aren't everything. Comics must be fun. Comics won't make you rich. I've tried to disprove this. I was told this early on. I haven't gotten to disprove it yet. If you succeed in disproving it, remember how much fun and kindness I gave you tonight. You meet people that are unreliable, full of ego and cliqueism, and some are just plain dicks. You'll find comic shops are pig-headed, resistant, and some that love to support locals and startups. Perhaps because of the extra lengths you have to go to in digital self-publishing comics, it's also a lot more work. That's why I've decided I'll only make comics if it pays and if it's fun, as sure things. So find your soulmates, find your fans, enjoy it. Anyone can make comics, but not everyone can do it without the toxicity. So these are a few photos of the most fun I've had in comics. You can see the London Underground sign with comics with Sean on the left and Ollie on the right. So London Underground Comics was, we had a stall in Camden Market selling comics. And Ollie, the chap on the right, worked out it was really actually quite cheap. It was like £30 or something like that for a Saturday stall, I guess $50. But quite a lot for one person, but divided up by 10 people. And you're selling one or two comics to cover your table. It's not a great risk, and there's space for at least 10 comics on a market stall. Ollie in the striped shirt with the Simon Amstel look, he was pretty much our leader with this, and he generated all sorts of viral stuff. He filmed footage of us around the market, set them to music. We got, because we were doing something that was a bit sort of, there was a bit of a form of protest against these conventions who were charging us $90 for a table for a day, and we might not sell anything there. And here we were, paying half of that to the general public. You don't need to pay into the door to go in anywhere. And we started to get love from the comics press. And, next thing we know, Alan Moore is doing one of his rare interviews across town, and he's doing it with a podcaster who is a friend of our stall. And we go over there. Ollie goes over and he gets a bloody endorsement from Alan Moore because he agrees with the principle of what we're doing, of this independent, rock and roll stuff. Just below that picture, the very blurry nightclub is Lawrence and Oliver, and they were part of the London Underground comics set. And they used to promote their comics by DJing at a local club weekly or monthly. And they tried to stick to a monthly or a few monthly schedule. So their launch party was actually a club night. And, that shifted loads of stuff. Or at least pretty respectable for, something that might have been done on a photocopier. And then the pictures on the right are captioned the UK's longest running comics festival. It was the creator's choice of convention for, I think, about 21 or 22 years in Oxford. The longest run one in the UK. I said that already. And we had one dealer's table, and everybody set their stuff down on the dealer's table. And you had a few volunteers who sold that. And Caption got 10% of whatever was sold, but there was no charge. If you didn't sell anything, you didn't get charged for that. And it let other people just wander around the con and go to talks and draw stuff, and we did all sorts of fun stuff like condensed versions of the X-Men film with a red bucket for Magneto's mask and cut-out Weetabix for Logan's sideburns, and there was a chair where a guest speaker pulled out. So the chairperson for that became a chair. Okay. Wow. I will just scroll on to the very wrap up, and then we can all chill out a bit and talk at the after party. So this is my stuff to plug. Absence. Most of my books are all up on Amazon. Some of them aren't safe for work, so if you happen to be at work at the moment, don't buy them. But Chaos Magic is my new one out today, actually. It's my very first poetry collection from about 10 years of poems. And there's, in the giveaways channel, there's currently 10 of them being offered. So just go in there and click the ta-da icon. The giveaways channel is awesome. It's a little golden nugget of SaskCon that most people forget about. So I've got Axel America in the US election race for my first novel, which was about conspiracy theories and the 2016 election. I was still writing it when Trump was running for the election, and then Brexit happened, so there's all this sort of mad stuff. And To End All Wars is just it deserved its double Eisner nomination. Yeah. Spied is kind of it's a very dirty book. It's like Train Spotting. It's full of swearing and mental characters, and it's kind of about Northern Ireland's mythology and tribalism, all rolled up into this weird Indiana Jones surreal trip. And that's kind of me. So I'm going to, thank you. Take some unspecified drink. Oh. And I literally finished writing my second panel 20 minutes before SaskCon today, and I thought I would just wing that talk off my notes. So yeah, okay. Um, how do you find people to work with? Ah, right. How do I find people to work with? Like particularly that will help you in publishing or help in selling books? Is it through the groups? Um, I'm Ari. I'm back. I'm back tomorrow. I'll mention that in a bit, actually. Yeah, because I'm really excited about that one. Um, so traditionally, I found um, other comics creators through things like various cities I've lived in. I've had a comics pub meet either once a week or once a fortnight. Conventions, and my favorite part of conventions is the pub. Not because I'm an alcoholic, um, but just because the pub has that informal thing going on where nobody's trying to sell you anything. You're just talking, you're making new friends, you're enjoying what we call the crack, the fun of it all. Um, and that's a big part of it. Uh, yeah, that's creators. How do you find help in publishing or help in selling the books? And that's a tough question, and it's let's see if I can try and answer that. So keeping an eye on callouts. I mean, the whole small press, independent publisher thing. There are always people doing callouts. It's just a matter of looking around, and when you get a tip off, sign up to that group. I should maybe try and come up with a few more names. My friend Glenn Matchett works with a regular indie publisher. Um, and if anybody has better answers than me, or even just alternative answers, it's not a competition; it's a knowledge pool. So just throw stuff in the chat, please. Um, and it's hmm, there are opportunities on places like Fiverr, and Fiverr is thankfully seems to have lost that sort of thing of jobs for a Fiverr, and it's getting more towards paying people uh, some proper money for doing proper jobs. I mean, there's still charlatans out there, plenty, but you can absolutely find book designers on Fiverr. Um, help selling the books. Yeah, if you've got good relations with comic shops or in neighbouring towns, absolutely. Somebody mentioned Kickstarter there. There's Indiegogo as well. Um, did I talk about Patreon? No. Patreon is maybe I did. Patreon is absolutely my lifeline. Every month I have I get about $150 maybe, and that makes a big difference every month. And I kind of know through that's kind of a place for me to try out my stuff and develop it so that I can take it. I can be choosy about what I'm publishing because it is so much work. I feel really bad now because I haven't answered your question, or at least I don't feel I have. But groups, networks, all that. Um, Yeah, yes, Ivan. The settling and the distribution stuff is the biggie, and I think it's the area that we need to think the hardest about. I mean, digital. I haven't quite got the knack of Kindle's Comixology type app, this how to construct the scroll of panel to panel, but it looks fairly doable. And of course, part of a big thing of crowdfunding is that it's not just about the money; it's also about setting up that distribution structure. And I guess it's just like talking to people and that um, and making contacts and um, getting spots at cons. Um, one of the things I've noticed this year in lockdown through watch parties is that I constantly mention my Patreon, patreon.com/Andy Luke, and it's become a bit of a joke. And this is now a catchphrase amongst my friends. But you absolutely have to be not modest about it. You have to be bold, and you have to be cheeky, and it sticks in people's head. And as long as I don't let them down on the other end, there's plenty of awesome material for them on there. So patreon.com/Andy Luke. How would you say is the best way to share the comic? Free. This is digitally, obviously, but free wherever you can make it. And you know what? If you've got Absence was one really good comic. And that got me so much. I got the day it launched, like within 12 hours, I got an email or a tweet from Dan Jurgen, the Death of Superman writer, to tell me that his son had epilepsy and he loved the book. And it's like, wow, I've had no contact with anybody at that level before, and that was really weird. So make it good and make it free, even if it's just one comic. And that will open doors. Is it feasible to get onto Kindle's bookshop if I posted the comic online? It depends. Well, Kindle, if I remember, has two particular. It got KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, and then KDP Select. And Select is the exclusive, so Amazon only, nowhere else. If you're going the regular route, it's less royalties, but it means you can publish all over the place. Yeah.
Buddy, just giving a little less than 10 minutes left, heads up. The next panel for panel room 2 is going to be how to respect your audience and their intelligence, and it's going to be a text-based panel, so voice chat's not going to be used for panel room 2 in the next hour. Thank you.
Thanks, Raisin. Oh, that woman deserves some round of applause afterwards. I've been having a really interesting internal debate about scrolling comics. I wonder, are we going to come to a point where all comics panels are the same size for ease and scrolling, or at least, similar dimensions? Did somebody have a question earlier that I missed? I got to it. Xiphon, assistants are a great find. Comics, yeah. And I'll be talking a little bit about this in my sociological stories panel tomorrow night, which I have thrown everything into again. I'm really proud of it. Tomorrow night, my time. I think that's tomorrow afternoon, your time, 3:00. About things like, Scrivener, I know works for a lot of people. I've never used it. Having a dedicated creators room where you can line graphics up on the walls and post-it notes and properly organize your stuff. And, again, that's something I don't have any longer. Definitely, if you can find the best friends, in my experience, for helping support you are fellow creators. Is there anywhere I can find? Yes, patreon.com/Andy Luke. But I'm going to put a link up to Absence Comics, and essentially but otherwise it's essentially just give me a Google. And I think I'll put this up in the room now.